My name is Brett Augustine. I'm a recovery business advisor for North Central Texas Small Business Development Centers, which is a leading provider for assistance for small businesses. We're grant funded, which allows us to offer services at no cost to you, as well as creating an opportunity for you to speak with a business advisor. If you ever want to, please look us up online to find out more. Building a smart online marketing strategy with Miss Melissa Forciat. And we're happy to have her back. If you didn't get to attend in 2021, she gave us some great series coming out to help us all with our marketing. And she's back again, and we're really happy to see that. Today, if you would, leave your questions in the chat, and we will be happy to address them as we go or at the end whenever Melissa is ready. And with that said, if you haven't met Melissa, Melissa is a Southern California-based marketer, speaker, consultant, and author. She teaches small businesses how to market on a budget and helps them to execute their marketing strategies in addition to working with business organizations to train their trainers. She offers keynotes, presentations, workshops, and webinars, and her national and international speaking schedule has taken her as far as New Zealand. To date, she has delivered over 120 workshops, webinars, and to thousands of attendees. Before starting Melissa Forciat Events Marketing, which is her company, her career involved roles with the Olympic Winter Games, Rugby World Cup, and the U.S. Olympic Committee. We're super happy to have you today, Melissa. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Melissa Forciat.
Thank you so much for the great introduction, Brett, and for having me. And I'm just going to take a second here, make sure I can get my screen to share so you can all see the presentation. Okay, so that should be done now. Hope if anybody doesn't see it, let me know, but I'll keep plowing forward here. First of all, a huge thank you not only to Brett, but to Lori and Paula and Judy and everybody over at the North Central Texas SBDC. It was great to work with you last year and to be able to present to all the small businesses in your area. And I'm really excited to do that again this year because we have some new material coming up and, it's a new year. It's a good time to start thinking about how you're going to plan for success. People don't just have successful businesses out of nowhere. It usually comes as a result of having a plan and executing it and doing some hard work to make it happen. So what we want to do today is give you the tools for that. Now, before I get into the material itself, I'll give you a little bit more background on who I am to help put perhaps a bit more context to this presentation. So like Brett was just saying, I started out in my career doing major international sport events. So, Olympic Winter Games, Rugby World Cup. I worked with the U.S. Olympic Committee. Basically, this is, we're heading towards the 2022 Olympics here. So this is close to my favorite time of year. It's interesting getting started in a forum like that because those businesses are operating at a huge scope, a huge scale. I mean, there's no one person that has visibility to every stakeholder group and how it's all going all at once. You really need to communicate and get information from multiple sources to see how a project like that is going. So it was interesting to start with a scope like that. But now, I started my own business, my own micro business, I'd say 9 years ago now. My business looks like many of yours probably look like, it's a very small business, micro business. I'm the owner operator. And I work primarily with businesses that have a model like that too. So I not only understand the scope of a large business, but I also understand the challenges you may have and the resources you're dealing with as a micro business owner. Or any small business owner. So for me, it's really about giving you practical information that you're going to be able to implement with the resources that you have. And that's important for a topic like this, because a lot of times you're going to get people talking about online marketing, but being very flippant about how much budget you need to spend to do everything. And I want to be really careful about that with you today, because I know that not everybody has the budget to put towards something like this. So we're going to try to look for creative situations, creative solutions to be able to get in front of your audience and stay in front of your audience and generate sales while you're marketing online. So that's just a little bit of a background. That's basically my mission with a presentation like this. Now, a few quick housekeeping items before we jump in. First of all, this is a great time to make sure you've minimized any distractions on your end. Whether, I know we're on mute here, but even if you are, distractions on your end take you out of the material. So this is a great time if the ringer on your phone is on. This is a great time to silence it. If you've got messaging devices in the background, if you've got anything happening that's distracting you that you can shut off, this is a good time to go ahead and do that, because the more you focus in on this material, the more you're going to get from it. The more you're thinking about it in relationship to your business, the more you will take away. Having said that, you are going to find with this presentation and every presentation that I do that I love slides. I have a lot of slides, and some of them are really meant to be takeaways for you. So if there's anything that you're watching this presentation and you think, oh, I wish I had that slide, you can have that slide. I sent a link to everybody at the SBDC, so they have this whole slide deck available in a link online, and it's available on request. So feel free to ask them if you're interested to get it, and they can make sure that they send it over to you. Now, in terms of questions, this presentation works a little differently for those of you who perhaps saw any of my presentations last year. This one is structured a little bit differently. It's a little bit longer. As you'll notice, today's an hour and a half long. The other presentations we have coming up are only an hour. And with that, I've structured it just a little bit differently, where instead of just doing questions at the end, I'm also going to allow for questions a couple times during the middle. I'll let you know where those moments are in just a moment, because there's really specific breakpoints that I think are logical to make sure that we're all still on the same page before we move forward. So I just wanted to tell you that up front. If you do have questions, feel free to put them into the chat. For me, that is the best way to manage it. But I know I think you're also able to unmute yourself if you want to do that as well. And there will be a few times that I pose questions to you. So whether you're on with me live right now, or if you're watching this back from the future, feel free to ponder those questions as we get there, because it's one of the ways that I want to make sure that this material is really something that's alive for your business, and that it's, you're able to apply that material to what you do as we go. Okay, here's how we'll tackle this today. First, we're just going to lay the groundwork with some core strategy. I love strategy, so I thought we'd start there, make sure we know what we're trying to do with online marketing before we get tactical. Then we're going to look at 5 specific tools that we want to go into a little bit more detail on today. We're going to talk about your website and blogs. Then we'll have I think there's a natural break there, so there'll be an opportunity for questions after the blogs. Then we'll talk about social media, and again, we'll have an opportunity for questions right after that. And then we'll wrap up by talking about newsletters and lead magnets. So hopefully this will give you a pretty well-rounded look at online marketing. Now, one of the reasons that I really like to do this presentation, because a lot of times people only want to hear about one thing, like let's say social media, but it's helpful to have the whole picture, because what I'm trying to help you avoid is the types of things, the pitfalls and traps that I ran into when I was starting my own business. So let's be upfront and talk about my biggest mistake. This little image I think is very symbolic of it, especially as we head towards the Winter Olympic Games. We've got this fake bobsleigh and Olympic store running me over. That was basically what online marketing was at the very beginning for me, because I sort of did things. I was working as quickly as I could, but for me, for example, I worked really hard to build a Facebook audience. I was really assertive about building relationships on that specific platform and did a great job with it. But I was missing, because I didn't have it available yet, something for those people to download from me, something like the free ebook that I have now about small business marketing on a budget. Had I had that at the time when I got started, if I had something that people could download sitting on my website, those people that I met on Facebook would have ended up on my email list, and my email list would have been much, much bigger than it is now. And, you know, I would have had that right from the very beginning because of all the work that I had done. So, you know, had I just done those things in a slightly different order, you know, my business may be in a different spot today. It just took a little bit longer for me to get that momentum because of it. So, what I'm hoping you get out of today is to really think about, okay, here's some of the stuff that I'm doing well already. Here's something I may be missing. And maybe today is the day you start thinking about how to fill in that gap so that you can get more momentum in your online marketing. So that's an example that's relevant for me. But as we go through these different sections, if you find something that's sort of the gap you have, let's really think about how you can start tackling 2022 by filling that gap. Okay, so let's make sure before we get into the meat of this conversation that we're all in the right place. Here's what we're talking about today. First, we're going to talk about building an online presence that will have staying power. You know, I think a lot of people are interested in, oh, how do I go viral? It's so rare. It's such a lightning in a bottle thing for most of us to even consider that. Going viral really isn't a viable strategy. What you can put in place, though, is an intentional plan that will help you have long-term success. We can all do that. And when you do that, you'll find that you get reward over time. Stuff that you put out there 3-4 years ago may be the thing that somebody discovers, you know, 3-4 years in the future. So this is the kind of thing that we really want to set up for your business so that you have like the additive effect of the benefit of your marketing. Now, we'll also be talking about learning how to build community online. You know, I'm a big believer in relationship building and relationship marketing and having good customer service. And we're going to talk about some of the different angles that you can take to using these different platforms, these different tools to build your community. We're also going to talk about, and there's all kinds of underlined words in this phrase, building an organic plan that will be viable with a low budget. So we're really going to be focusing today on organic online marketing, basically not advertising. And that's going to be viable with a low budget or no budget. There'll be maybe one thing that I suggest that if you have budget, you throw it towards. But for the most part, this conversation is going to be about how you work with whatever resources you have and stay within that low budget. Now, here's what we're not talking about today. And I wanted to make sure I was very clear about this upfront, because if this is what you came here for, you can get this time back today. Everything on this slide, right? Paid advertising, boosting lookalike audiences, ad budgets, pay-per-click, all these things. Now, I will say a little bit about sort of defining SEO and putting it in context with the topics we will be talking about, but we aren't talking about advertising strategy today. So if that's something that you want to know more about, it's a great topic to learn more about. There are people out there who talk about these things. So I encourage you to hunt down that information, and there may be something available to you through the SBDC itself. But the reason I don't tackle those topics in this particular presentation today is that those tools that I just mentioned, they can expedite the reach of an already good online marketing plan, but they are not a replacement for a good online marketing plan. I believe that if you don't have a solid plan in place, you're going to end up wasting more of the money that you spend on advertising. If you have a really strong plan that nurtures your leads, you'll get a lot more from those advertising dollars if you have them to spend. So I want to give you one quick metaphor visual to put behind this so that you kind of get why I'm saying this. You know, imagine you're really thirsty, you want to drink some water. Would you pour the water into a cup or a sieve to drink out of, right? You pour it into the sieve, the water keeps spilling out the sides. You're sitting there under the faucet, you're trying to get this water into the cup, and the more water goes in, the more it keeps spilling out. You can't get enough water that you can actually drink it. Whereas if you had a cup with no holes in it, you pour the water in, water fills up in the cup, you drink it, and you're feeling good again, right? So to me, this is kind of the same as your marketing plan. If you don't have a way to keep your leads with you, to nurture them, to maintain those relationships, it's kind of like pouring the new leads into a marketing plan that looks like a sieve, and you spend the money, you spend the time to meet new people, and then they're gone and you don't know how to reach them anymore, or you lose those relationships before they become something. What we're trying to do is make sure that doesn't happen, so that if you have a really solid plan in place, now when you do invest time or money to meet more people, you know that more of those people are going to stick with you longer. That is what we are aiming for today. So that's why I personally want to make sure we have the foundation in place first. For those of you who are beyond that point already, again, I'm sure there's really good content out there to talk specifically about advertising as well. So having said all that, hopefully we're all in the right place here, and let's jump in and talk about how to build a smart online marketing strategy. Okay, first things first, we're setting a foundation here, because before we get tactical, we need to know why, what are we trying to do? Why are we online marketing? What can we possibly achieve? And how does that impact how you use all the tools that we'll talk about today? So again, I'm trying to set you up with the mindset that online marketing is a long-term strategy. We want to make sure that if you don't go viral tomorrow, that people can discover you 3 years from now and really feel like they're getting nurtured by everything that you've put in place. So, the more you think about the long term, the more you're going to find success in the long term, and people will be coming to you from things that you wrote many years ago in some cases. Now, here are 5 tools we're going to talk about today in the process of trying to get there. There are 5 tools in the tool belt. So we'll talk about websites, we'll talk about blogs, social media, newsletters, and lead magnets. And as just a little challenge to you, one of these things I'm going to suggest isn't necessarily mandatory. And I'm curious what you think that is, which one you think that is up front before we get into the content itself. So feel free to write in the chat whichever one you think is the one I think isn't mandatory, just to see where we all are to begin with, because it's sort of an interesting exercise to see which ones people think are the ones that are most important, and which ones maybe people don't know anything about, or don't think is as necessary. So like I said, feel free to throw into the chat what you think that is. Straight away, I see newsletter as the first one that's posed out there. So anybody who's listening in with me live, feel free to put in what you think that is. If you're watching this back, feel free just take a moment and think about which one you think it is. And I won't answer that straight away. I'm going to answer it when we get there. But let's see where we land. So we've got newsletter and blog so far, are the responses that I've been seeing. So really great way to start getting a sense of where we're headed with this. And who knows, maybe you're right, or maybe I'll surprise you. But we'll get there in a minute to answer that question. For now, let's talk about the purpose for every tool. So of those 5 that I named, each of those tools does have a specific function in the overall strategy. I like to think of all of them as kind of getting the assist in the goal. If we think of a sports reference, a lot of not just one tool that does all of the work. It's how they all connect with each other that can be really helpful. So when we think about the overall strategy, there are really 5 objectives that we could be trying to achieve. So let's unpack those. First of all, we've got building the brand. This is a really interesting one, because years ago, decades ago, perhaps, if you wanted to get information out there, publicized about your brand, your channels for doing so were a lot more limited. A lot of us were perhaps looking for opportunities to get featured in media publications or earned media opportunities. Maybe you were looking for a newsletter, TV, radio, newspaper, TV, radio, magazine features or articles. Those opportunities were great for a business years ago. All the eyes were on a very few outlets. And so when you got an opportunity like that, it was a huge boon to your business. It was a wonderful opportunity, but it's hard to get them because every business was clamoring for those same very limited number of spots to be featured or interviewed. So that was a great opportunity, hard to come by. And the other thing about it was that, we didn't control, you could control what you said in an interview, but you couldn't control the final product. You couldn't control how it came together or the angle that was taken to discuss your business. So there were some limitations with it as well, but the model has shifted now completely. We have this world now where with online marketing, you can put your own content out there. You can control the narrative about your business. You can, to some degree at least, you can decide what information you want to say and how you want to spin, you want to cultivate your audience. And you get to make those decisions as a business owner. Of course, the flip side now is that it's harder to get people to see it because everywhere where we would do that is so saturated with other businesses putting their message out that it can be very difficult to break through. But the benefit remains, if you can get people to go to any of the things that you've created in your online marketing, any of the tools that we'll talk about today, if you can just get somebody there, can you get them to feel like they really understand your brand? That is the challenge that we have as business owners. And it's one goal for online marketing. Now, another one would be building reputation. And this one to me is really interesting because I've been thinking more and more over the years about the psychology of marketing and sales. And, there are different personality types in the buying process, but pretty much all of them need some kind of validation before they become a customer or a client. They want to know they're making a good choice before they make the choice. So there are different ways people gather that information, but at the end of the day, the more that you can show them up front that you're good at what you do, you're reputable, other people trust you and like your business, other people have hired you and like your business, whatever kind of business you have, they probably want to know your products or your services are good, that they're going to be happy with them in the end. So it's important for us as business owners to use these tools, these channels that we have with online marketing to show that we are already validated, to show all the ways that our reputation is already strong. This can be a really hard thing for some small business owners to do because you want to be humble. But you also need to show people that they're going to make a good investment with their money, with whatever it is they choose to buy from you. So it's important that we do find a way to break through that feeling of needing to be humble to communicate this to them. And there's a lot of ways you can do that when you can control the flow of information online. Now, a third element here is creating community. That's a third goal. And it has a relationship to that last goal of building your reputation, because the stronger your community is, the more it seems to suggest that your reputation is strong, right? The more people who are clamoring around your business, it does suggest that you have a strong reputation. But creating community is also a goal unto itself, because you can be assertive about going out and building relationships in many different of these tools that we're going to talk about today. And you can start being proactive in growing your business and the reach of your business, and be intentional about maybe the partnerships you build for your business, not just the leads that you're generating. So creating community is something that is perhaps even easier to do now online, as long as you have a strategy for doing it. Generating leads, that's our fourth goal. And I'm a believer that generating leads is a byproduct of doing the first three things well, and then having a way for those people to connect with you directly. So if you've built the brand and the reputation in the community, and then you give people a way to connect with you directly, this can now be a lead that you nurture, hopefully into a sale down the road. So ideally with online marketing, a lot of times we're talking to like a faceless mass of people, so there's 30 people I'm talking to, but I don't necessarily know who they are. We want to get them to be people we can name and discuss, have conversations with again. So this is that generating leads point, that transition from I have no idea who I'm talking to I do know exactly who I'm talking to, and I can continue this conversation at will. Now, this brings us to our fifth and final goal, which is generating sales. If you've done those first four things well, you built the brand, reputation, and community, and you've given people a way to connect with you directly, this person is now in your sales pipeline, and you can nurture that relationship until it becomes a sale. For some of your businesses, this process may happen very quickly. For some businesses like mine, people may kind of be in thinking about, the thinking about mode for a while before they invest, before they put the money in. So for some of us, you'll see these steps happen in a longer process. But wherever you are, chances are people are going through this process to get to know your business. So what I do want to say here is that for so many of us, obviously you're in business, you want sales, you need revenue. We know that, right? This is ultimately, everybody does have to have this goal if you're going to have a viable business. But if the only goal that you have is generating sales, it's generally harder to get there with online marketing. If people only feel from you that you're just trying to sell to them all the time, they're less likely to want to hear from you. So when it comes to online marketing, I want you to really think about, how do you work through all of these goals to get to the sales? And you will probably find the process of online marketing a lot more rewarding if you do that. So having said all of that, those are our goals, right? But now we want to look at the tactical approach. Yeah, we know what we want to do, but how do the tools fit in? So let's first look at the website. What does a website do for you? Now, you're going to notice that within each of these sections, each of these tools, I'm going to have a slide that looks a little bit like this right at the very beginning. This is meant to give us, some sort of quick bullet points of what can this tool do for you? And we're going to unpack that in the rest of the section. But this is just a good way to sort of, at a glance, remember what it is I think all of these tools do for you. So with a website, it connects your marketing, the messaging you're putting out there, with the actual offerings that you have to sell. It hopefully shows all of your content, all of your assets in one place. Here's everything you can explore for my business. Also, it's going to illustrate what sets your business apart from competitors that you may have. It is going to draw new audiences in through search engines, hopefully. And then ideally, it's a truth teller of your marketing analytics. So let's talk about this all a little bit more. The goal of a website. In a perfect world, when you bring people to your website from wherever they came from, and they're your target market, my hope for you is that once they land on your website, they're getting a chance to really explore your business and its offerings, but also to get comfortable very quickly with it. We don't want people just to land on the website and walk away. We want them to spend time there exploring what we have available, exploring the personality of the business, the brand of the business, and get comfortable enough where by the time they walk away, they've either signed up for something or bought something. That's the perfect world, right? Or they come back later or recommend you to somebody else. Those are all great outcomes. But we want them to, as they spend more time with our business, feel more comfortable, not less. So when you think about that, ultimately websites are where everything connects for your business. This is where you can put all of the information and people can see how it relates. So whatever your offers, your services or products are, this is really something that should be apparent to them and should hopefully be something that they want to walk through and get more information about. Now, I think of websites as a central hub for all this information. And when I say that, I like to think of it as sort of train stations versus like platforms on a given line. If you wanted to go somewhere physically, geographically, you wanted to go from point A to point B, and you had a destination in mind, where do you have the most options? If you went to a central train station with multiple platforms that are all going in different directions, you're going to have more options on where you go from there. You can, if you knew where you wanted to go, you'd probably look for a place that could get you there. If you didn't know where you wanted to go and you were just thinking, where would I like to be? You're gonna go to that station. You're gonna look at all of the different destinations, and you're gonna say, oh, this one looks good to me. And you're going to find, you pay for the ticket, get on the train, find the right one, and you'll be able to get where you want to go. Whereas if you start at the end of a line or somewhere in the middle of a line, the only options you have are the stations on that line, right? You don't have as many options. If you want to get somewhere really far away, you might very well need to get yourself to a station first that has multiple platforms so you can go in the direction you need to go. So your website is sort of a similar thing. There are other tools in your online marketing plan that are going to be just taking you back and forth. Your website is the one that opens up more of a world of possibilities to your customers. So this is something to think about in terms of what you're making available to them. Now, another thing that your website can do is it helps to show what makes your business unique. Chances are, whatever your business is, you probably have somebody else some other competitor who does something similar. It's not, there's still space for all of your businesses. You can still make it in the world, even if you have a competitor, but it helps your audience to show what's different. How do we do business differently? How do we offer something that's different? What is different about what you do? What makes you unique? And there's definitely going to be an answer to this question because you are different. But, what about what you do is going to be a different experience for them? And if you can communicate that on your website through how you talk about your brand, through how you talk about your products or services, you're going to help your audience understand why they should choose whatever it is you are selling. So this is something that we'll talk about a little bit more when we get to the social media section and we talk about brand. But think about this. Think about how it paints a picture of what makes it different to support your business instead of another's, or in addition to another's for that matter. Now, another thing that I want you to bear in mind is that your website isn't about you. It's not about what you like. It's about speaking to your target market and making sure that they understand what they need to understand. What is it they need to hear from you to get comfortable with your brand and to get comfortable with your products and services? Whenever you're building out any marketing tool, but especially a website, think about what your customer's experience is going to be with it and how you can use it to speak directly to them. Now, I'm probably going to say target market a few times here today, so I'm going to give you a quick definition for that before we move on. This is the people who'd be most likely to be interested in your product, your service, your program, your idea, whatever it is you're selling. These are the people who would be most likely to buy it. You might have more than one. If you only have one target market, build out your whole website with that specific target market in mind. It does start to get more interesting when you have more than one target market, and a lot of us do. A lot of us have more than one audience that need to hear from us. So when you have that situation, think about how you're going to structure your website to resonate with all the different target markets that you have, right? If you've got multiple different audiences you're trying to attract, maybe you've got multiple different landing pages where you can send them to the specific page that's relevant to them first. And then from there, they can explore the rest of your website. But, when it gets more complex, when you've got more than one audience, but it is still possible to build a website that can speak to each one in the way they need to be spoken to. So this is something that, ideally when you're planning out what your website looks like, you're really thinking about it from their standpoint and making sure that it serves them. Now, I'm also going to say something really quick about keywords and SEO. And again, we're not talking about this from an advertising standpoint, but I want you to understand this concept because websites can be really powerful in that when you're building out a website for your business, you're also creating sort of a searchable directory of information for something like Google to pick up. So, what is it your website is about? As Google or whatever search engine starts to index what your website is about, it may make your website available to new people when they search for things. So this is something to consider. It is possible for people to discover your website without you even having done anything necessarily to attract them, but because it's available to them through a search engine. So we're going to unpack this a little bit more when we talk about blogs, to give you something more tangible to think about. But, websites, yeah, there's a lot of work that we can do to bring people to the website, but sometimes just indexing your site really well and making sure that on the back end, it's got all the keywords set up that it needs to have can be a way that we can build for long-term success for people to be able to find us without us having to do a ton of work later. Now, again, we'll come back to this one in just a minute when we talk about blogs. The last thing I wanted to say about websites before we move on to blogs is that If you can invest money in any one part of the plan, this would be the part that I would suggest. And again, I'm speaking to all of you with the mindset that you may not have a ton of budget for your online marketing or any. But I hope what you're seeing here is websites can do a lot of heavy lifting for your business. And as we talk through some of the other tools, you may see new functions that your website can have in working really hard on your behalf. So it really helps if you have a website that is doing these things for you versus one that's just sort of cosmetic. There's a lot of functionality a website can have, and it can be doing a really good job of keeping your target market with you, or it could be not doing that. So if there is one place where, you know, you make sure that you've really got a solid website, it's professional, and it's doing these functions that you need it to do, this is where I would spend that budget. And I just want you to consider that as you look at your marketing plans for the year. Now, having said that, let's take a closer look at blogs. And the reason that I'm putting these two things together before we take questions is that hopefully your blog is sitting on your website. So to me, we need to talk about these things together. So what can a blog do? Well, first of all, I think of it as a magnet for the website to attract new people. It helps keep your website fresh and updated. It can trigger keyword phrases for search rankings. So that's where we're going to pick up on what we were just starting to talk about in websites. Also, it can help position your business with authority, basically directly tying into that reputation goal. And lastly, it can tell the story of your business, which directly ties into perhaps that brand building goal. So let's talk about these in more detail. I like this image. As you can see, I like metaphors, right? So I like that, you know, blogs, they can be like a magnet for your website. It's giving new visitors a reason to come to your website, or it's giving old visitors a reason to come back. It's basically saying, yeah, you may have seen what was on my website before, but I've got this new idea, this new thought, this new piece of information that I've just posted. It gives people a reason to come back. So, you know, if nothing else on your website is changing, at least this is. Now, when you think about that, you know, it may be brand new people who are potentially discovering you. And let's talk about that a little bit, right? If somebody wants to search for something and maybe they go to Google or they go to Bing or they go to any of these other search engines that could be available to them, the search engines are a business model too. They want people to advertise through them. So they want people to have the experience that if they put in a search query, they get a good response that's useful to them. Because the more useful they are, the more they're going to be able to make their business model work. So the search engines want to direct us to what is going to be most relevant to us in terms of an answer. It's going to be very hard for your website to be the answer and for it to be relevant if your website hasn't been updated in years, right? There's a lot of things that go into the algorithms of how businesses rank on search engines. A lot of things. I'm not going to try to unpack that here, but think about this logically. If let's say Google is trying to decide, okay, which one should rank higher? Two businesses that both seem to have good information, but this one was only updated 10 years ago, and this one was updated yesterday. There's going to be a logical assumption that the one that's been updated more frequently or more recently is more relevant. It's probably more timely, and it's probably accounting for more current information. So think about that. You know, if you're touching the back end of your website more frequently, chances are you're making updates and keeping it more relevant and current, and that may be something that is reflected in how you rank. Now think about that for a second. So if we imagine, you know, a typical business website, and there are certainly ones that have a lot more pages than this, but here are some of the ones that are usually standard. You usually have some sort of homepage, some sort of landing page. You often have an about page to describe more about the business, more about the people behind the business. A lot of times we'll have a services or products page, you know, whatever your services or products are, they'd probably be listed here. For some people, this is going to be blown out into a bigger shop or an e-commerce page, but services or products are probably something that you're going to mention. And then a contact page. I would say four pages like this are pretty typical across business pages. And again, you can certainly see businesses that have more than this on their website. Now, think about that though. How many of those pages actually need to be updated frequently? Once you've got the home or about information, the contact information on your website, unless any of those things change at the core, how often do you change those pages on your website, right? Services and products. For some businesses, this may change a lot. Maybe you have a seasonal collection that comes out, or you have new products that come in and out. But for some businesses like mine, you list your services once and you're pretty much done touching them, right? So for some of us, these types of pages will never change to the point where we can keep our website fresh and updated. And so that's where we start looking at something like a blog, where you can start putting a new spin on the information you have on your website. You can be adding content, you can be updating things a little bit easier, because there's always new stuff coming out for people to find. Now, I wanted to come back to this idea of keywords and SEO and build it out a little bit more as well. We know that people can potentially discover you because of your website, right? But a lot of times that happens because of your blog. So think about it this way. Let's say you wanted to make banana bread and you thought, okay, I want to make banana bread, but I don't really know how. I'm going to go to a search engine. I'm going to type in best banana bread recipe or banana bread recipe. And let's say you go to Google, Google gives you, however many, gazillions of results they give you. And you start on the first page and you start looking through and you think, oh, do I like this one? Do I like this one? So, you probably start on the first page. You probably start at the top and you're clicking through until you find a recipe that you want to try. And then you try it and you like it. Great. Now you're thinking, oh, this site had a really good recipe. I wonder what other recipes they've got. Maybe next time you come back to them. Or maybe next time you look for another recipe and you get a lot of search results, you mentally remember that website had a great banana bread recipe. So it draws you back to it. I liked that one. Why not try another one? So you discovered an entire website because of one recipe. And your blog is the same thing, right? Think about the recipes as being a blog and, the banana bread recipe being one blog entry. This is the same thing for your business, right? Somebody could potentially discover your entire website because they discovered one blog you wrote or however you communicated it, right? They discovered the one thing. So this is something to consider. That's really powerful, where you could draw new people in because you discussed like a micro topic about your business. It could be a specific service or offering that you unpack in greater detail. So think about how you might use that to draw new people in to your website. Now, the other thing to consider here is that you get to position your brand through content that you put out there, whether it be video content, whether it be written content, however you format it, you get to put your brand out there. So you start wearing the PR hat for your business when you put content such as blogs out there in the world, which means we can look at this from a couple angles and maybe you can achieve both of these things, right? We can talk about the brand, the story, the persona of your business. This hooks into that brand building goal. You can also talk about your expertise, your authority, your experience, and this ties into the reputation goal, right? So blogs are a great way to sort of show people these things, not just tell them, but really show them through how you talk and how you talk about your business. So these are all some things to consider here. And I want to make sure that before we move on to, let's say, social media, that if you do have a question about the overall goals, about the website, about the blogs, let's tackle some of those now before we move on. If there's anything that's really you feel like you need more clarification before we move on, this is a great time to do it. So feel free to put any questions into the chat if you need that. I'll also pause what I'm saying for a moment in case anybody who's on live wants to interrupt me. And if you're listening to this back later, this is a good time to think about the questions you have, because you also have an opportunity to work with the SBDC to start answering some of them. So I'll give you just a moment here to think about your questions, and if we have any, we'll address them before we move on.
I'm not seeing anybody chat right away, but please go ahead and drop them in. And if you don't mind, Melissa, I have a quick question since we're on
Mhm.
websites themselves. I get asked this a lot from clients, and I myself actually cannot seem to dominate it because it just changes all the time. Do you, are you obviously suggesting that the website be one of the better investments that you actually make? Would you have any direction you'd like to give anybody as far as cost-effective ways to create a really well-designed website?
It's such a good question. And I think, part of the answer to that is knowing exactly what your business needs to put out there. What I would recommend before you even look for, if the question is, what kind of website do I build? What I would do first is I would create a little map for myself. If you're a visual person, maybe map it out that way. If you're not a visual person, maybe outline what you would want on your website and like bullet points or something. But what components need to be on your website, right? This is something that I often do with clients when we're working through marketing strategy. It helps us figure out what's all the stuff the website needs to do. Do you need to have a shop on your website? Do you need to have blog content on your website? We're going to talk about lead magnets in a minute. Do you want to have something that can attract new audiences that way? What are the different features? Do you want to have more elaborate things like a forum, or do you need to different websites have different needs. So, how many different target markets are you trying to reach? That's a really big one to consider because some people will have landing pages that each of those target markets can go to. So, if you start sort of outlining your needs, it starts to give you a sense of how complex your website's going to be. And that helps answer the question of what platforms you use. Like, for example, if you said, yes, I need e-commerce, I need a shop, that actually does change your options a little bit. So different platforms do different things really well. And in a perfect world, you can itemize, here's what I know I need this website to do, and then you bring it to maybe the SVDC to get some thoughts on, where do I find the right resource for this? Or you can start comparing and contrasting different platforms if you do your own research to see, oh, okay, I think I really need a Squarespace website, or something like that.
Okay.
So make sure it has the functionality you want first and then start comparing and contrasting.
Thank you, Melissa, very much. One other question that's come up, would a video vlog, if you will, be suitable to help marketing business?
I love that question because blogs can look like so many things. It can be video, it can be a photo gallery, it could be haikus if you wanted it to be. It could be comic strips. So many different ways that you can communicate. So for the people who are thinking, oh, I don't like the idea of typing. I hate the blinking, if blinking cursors are even a thing anymore. Now that I think about it, I might be dating myself a little bit there. But this idea that it has to be written can be really scary to people. So if you feel like you're communicating better through another medium, such as a video, uh, do that. Just it's another way to get good content onto your website and to keep people excited to explore more. So I love that question. A lot of people get really uncomfortable about writing. So this is a great way to open up your options. All right. Well, I appreciate those questions. I'm so glad we addressed those before we moved on. But let's start talking about social media. This section will be a little bit longer in time, but than the other ones. But that's more because I think this is like a good receptacle for talking about a lot of brand stuff. So a lot of the things that we talk about in this section are ideas that you can bring to all of the other tools. So I just want you to bear that in mind. The things that we talk about here, in a lot of cases, this isn't the only place that you can use these ideas in your online marketing. So having said that, what can social media do for your business? Well, first of all, it can convey personality, it can convey brand. It can sell without selling. It can establish social proof to enhance your reputation and community. Also, it can drive traffic where you want it to go if you're intentional about how you do that. And lastly, it can help you generate leads. So let's get into this in more detail. Showcasing personality. Again, this is really where building your brand, that first objective we talked about, comes in. And there are some things that social media can allow us to do fairly easily that I wanted to unpack more in this section, but please consider this first part relevant to pretty much everything we talk about today. There are a couple different tools we have for communicating brand and conceptualizing for ourselves what our brand is. Because I think sometimes people are like, I don't know what is my brand? I don't know. It seems like a big topic. Here are two things that we can focus on to start really dialing in on what the brand is for your business. The first one is values. These are the guiding principles of how your business operates. Now, you're seeing some examples of values words on this slide. This is not a full comprehensive list, but I really want you to think about how you're going to show up day to day with your customers, with your client base, with any stakeholders that you have. A lot of times we think of values as like, okay, this is a few words I'm putting on my website and then I'm kind of walking away from them. We think about it once and then never again, but that's not really what your values are. This is truly how you operate day to day in your business. It's what your audience should come to expect from you in terms of how you're going to operate. And if you've got multiple people on your team, whoever they're dealing with should reflect these values because you're all agreeing to representing these values with external stakeholders. So values are something that it's actually worth thinking about that. And social media gives you, because you're able to put out content, hopefully your content stays in line with those values. So let's look at a couple examples about this. Here I've got an example from Rolls-Royce. I like getting examples from Rolls-Royce because I know they're not marketing to me. So when I go out and look for what they're saying to the people they're trying to reach, it's always so interesting to me to see how they represent themselves. So we've got here, this is an example of a Facebook post. And, they say the finest cuisine is presented in the grandest of settings, adding the finishing touch to every Rolls-Royce experience. And then you've got these 3 pictures here, which are all different, but they all just kind of feel to me like luxury. They feel like prestige. Those are words that come to my mind for this company. And that's perhaps all, everything I've ever seen from them has given me those words. And this continues that tradition, right? So you're looking for the content that you put out there. They're looking for the content they put out there to stay consistent with what you thought they were about to begin with. And for me, those are a couple words that came to my mind. And whatever you understand of this brand, whatever words came to your mind, that's what you understand of Rolls-Royce, and that's what you're going to come to expect from them. Now, I'm going to show you a very different example here. We've got the Catholic company. Got good morning, read today's hashtag morning offering email. They've got this link to their email. A couple things I like about what they've done with this post. And then they've got this graphic, the morning offering. You could, maybe 2-3 seconds, you could read that, maybe a little longer if you really wanted to absorb it, but you can get this quick bite of information, right? You can interact with it quickly. So lots of things I like about what they've done with this post. But when we talk about this from a values standpoint, what words come to your mind? What things do you expect to see from this company, especially looking at this piece of content that we're looking at now? For me, a word like faith comes up. There may be words that come up for you, right? Whatever came up for you, you're going to start to expect that you're going to get more of that from whatever they say in the future, or from however you interact with them in the future. So values are something you can communicate pretty quickly through social media. Now, another tool we have is tone. And this one's pretty cool, actually, because this is their style of communicating to the audience. This is the sound of your voice. This is the tone of your voice and how you talk. In writing, in verbal communications, however you're communicating, this is how they can expect you to communicate. And again, you're going to see a graphic here with some examples of tone words. There's certainly more to add to the list, and you'll notice like some of these words have many different shades, like humor. There's many different types of humor. So it gets really fun when you start to play with combinations of these words or when you get specific. And I want you to think about how powerful this can be. Like if you can think of anybody in your life that you know or that you follow that you listen to them just because of how they talk about things. You know, it could be a family member that you always go to for advice, or it could be a newspaper columnist, it could be a talk show host, it could be a novelist that you like to read, that, you know, whatever you're initially thinking of, they built a loyalty in you just from how they talk. And even if other people talk about the same subjects, you're still going to go back to them to get their point of view. Even if you go to those other people too, you still have this loyalty that's been built out of their tone. So it can be so powerful to build a tone that resonates and draw in the people that you want to talk to. Now let's look at how you can do that on social media. And I'm going to give you two wildly different examples. So we've got NASA, right? Here's a post from actually a while ago on NASA. Once launched on Monday, NASA's transiting exoplanet survey satellite tests will collect 27 gigabytes of data per day, searching the sky for planets orbiting stars, the equivalent of that. Okay, so you get the idea, right? Like there's a lot of ways to deliver facts. It doesn't have to be delivered like this, but this is the tone they've chosen to take. They're giving you just the facts. It's a little bit dry, but it's you know, if that's what you want, you're gonna go to NASA's page because you're gonna get the data, you're gonna get the facts, and it's gonna be delivered in a way that doesn't have, you know, maybe a lot of opinion around it. There's a lot of different things about the tone they're striking here that's specific, and for the people who want to read it, it's hooking them in. So that's one example. Here's kind of the opposite. Old Spice. Being manly isn't about not showing emotion or being super tough. It's about watching branded live streams that teach you lessons on modern masculinity, right? There's so many things happening with this tone, right? I have come to expect that a company like Old Spice is going to give me like kind of over the top humor, like almost farcical humor. And, you know, I have no doubt that whatever this video was went even further, you know, like, and they've got almost kind of a liberal tone going on here. And there's a lot of different tones that are all wrapped up in just the little bit they have said. So whatever you gathered from this, because that's what I gathered from it, whatever you gathered from this just starts to get added to whatever you understand about this brand. And you're going to expect more of that from them in the future. So the people who like it, they're going to lean in. The people who don't, they're going to lean out. And again, we're hoping that we'll get enough people to lean in, that that's really our people for our business. So having said all that, you know, those are a couple tools that you have. Let's put a finer point on this and talk about the idea of selling without selling, because selling without selling is really about encouraging somebody to interact with your business without just hitting them with hard sales messages all the time. If you've ever seen somebody do that on social media, and again, this is a concept that I do think applies to other places other than social media too, but when we see it on social media, it can be really a hard pill to swallow. When you see a business that's doing nothing but selling to you all the time, when they're showing, you know, pictures of a product and a price tag, when they're giving you discounts, when you like a post and then they say, here's how you buy my stuff, and they call out your name, you know, that is really a big ask for the audience. If you're not ready to right then and there, it's very hard to interact with a business that's doing that all the time. And unfortunately, social media reach is driven by people interacting with your content, right? So the more people who are reacting to you and commenting and sharing your content, the more people will see it. So we need people to interact. We need people to want to engage with us. And this is where selling without selling comes in, because it's this idea that if I can, for example, if I'm like walking past a bakery and I smell the smell of a freshly baked cookie, it's the smell that draws me in, right? They didn't try to just sell me the cookie outright. They made me smell it first, and then they made me want it, and then I went and bought it myself. That's the thing that we're trying to do on social media or with selling without selling. And you might have noticed like the tone and the values examples. Maybe they start to do that for you. Maybe they start to get you excited about the brand, excited about the idea of interacting with the brand. And the more time you spend with that brand, the more likely you're going to be eventually to buy something or to recommend them to somebody else. So this is something that we really want to look at. Now, if you want more examples of this, because I don't want to spend too much time in this area when we know we might unpack this more in future conversations, I did put in my Instagram link here if you want to see some examples of things that I do to get people thinking about tone and values and to get them interacting with the business. But I would go out and look for other businesses out there. Just start getting examples. Look for examples of selling without selling in all of the advertisements and marketing that you see. And think about which ones are effective for you, because that starts to tell you how it works. And when you start doing things like this with your audience on social media, you'll probably find that you'll get more interaction over. Now, one other thing that I wanted to point out here when we look at like reputation and community building is that social media is a great place to start getting that validation going, to get that social proof going. You know, not only do we have the direct feedback of people engaging with our posts or not for that matter, but it's all visible to other people to see, right? So if people who are new to your business go to a social media platform and they see, ooh, you're interacting with people, there's people who are listening to you, it's naturally going to make them think that you have a stronger reputation. It's a perception that we have that people are listening to you. But you also get to initiate that. You can go out and proactively build community. You can go out and say, who do I want to be connected to the business? And you can go out and you can look for, you know, are there hashtags where people are having conversations about that subject and you can jump into the conversation? Are there other businesses that have your target market that you can start connecting with and you can support each other and start, you know, hopefully getting more of a crossover audience? How can you not only play with this idea that people are listening to you and you're listening to people, but then proactively bring new people back into the business? Social media lets you do that fairly easily if you spend the time to get into those conversations. And you will find that the more you engage in this way, the more value you're going to end up getting back from social media. A lot of people prioritize, what am I going to post today? But if you start prioritizing, who am I going to talk to today? That is going to ultimately bring a lot more people back to your business for you to then do something with those connections. So one more thing I want to mention about this is, yeah, now you're having the conversations, but where do they go next? Social media, you know, we don't own those platforms. Those aren't ours. The terms and conditions can change. They can be glitchy. So those companies could get bought or sold. You know, they could shut you down for no apparent reason. They get to decide what they do with their platform. So we want to make sure that we are not totally dependent on any one platform for communicating with our audience. So how do you take your audience from social media to the next place? Can you set intentional pathways for them to follow? For example, can you get them to a blog? Can you get them to your website? Can you get them to a newsletter or lead magnet, which is the next sections we'll talk about here? If you can get them from social media to the next place, you can deepen the relationship and you can also hopefully start to establish multiple ways of connecting with them so that you aren't at risk if the third-party platform that you're using for social media disappears for whatever reason. So where are you sending your audience next? It's something we're thinking about. Calls to action and links to other places are a great thing. It's one of the things I loved about the Catholic Companies post, because they get you to they had an email link there to get you to their morning offering post on their website. So this is something to think about. Now, if you do that, chances are you're going to be able to start generating leads, because hopefully we take people not just, you know, okay, this post reached 100 people, great, but who are the people? The more we do all this stuff, the more we get people to interact with us, the more we get them to our website, the more we can get them to sign up for our email lists. They start to become leads that we can reach back to later, people that we can call by name and know what they're interested in. So think about all this in relationship to social media. It's not just posting content all the time and seeing if, hopefully that will eventually lead to a sale. If you can have this progression that we've been talking about today, you're more likely to get what you want later. Now, one last thing I want to say about social media. Is social media mandatory? Now, this is either where I hook you in forever or I lose you. My thought here is it's not necessarily mandatory. Social media can be great for a lot of businesses. It can be, as you see from how we talked about it today, there's many different roles that your social media marketing can play in your marketing plan overall. There are many different functions that it could have in terms of getting leads and giving them information, sharing your brand, sharing your reputation. All of that is stuff you can do on social media. But if you're not going to spend time on social media, if you're not prepared to actually build relationships and be, in fact, social, you're probably not going to get those benefits. And social media does require long-term, consistent engaging and putting content and having conversations with people. A lot of the businesses that I know are not prepared to spend the time doing that. So they have a platform and they're putting very little out and they appear to be talking to nobody. And I think it actually makes your business look worse, because if somebody does find that platform, they think you're really unpopular because you're not talking to people there. So I want you to really consider that. If you are ready to be out there and to engage with people and put content out there, social media can be so great for you. And if you are not, if you're like, how can I spend less than an hour in a month on social media? If that's the space that you're in, maybe consider having a blog on your website and finding new leads in other ways. Go networking, go to community events, find a place where you are going to regularly interact with people. So I just want to put that out there for you. A lot of people feel really chained to social media. And if you're feeling like that, I want you to examine it. Is it a viable long-term part of your marketing strategy or not? And this may be something that you unpack more with the SBDC as you look at your own marketing plan to see, what am I really getting done on these platforms? So having just sort of dropped that bomb, I wanted to open up, before we move on to the final two sections of newsletters and social media. If you do have any questions now, please feel free to jump in with that. Again, you're welcome to put it into the chat, or, if you wanted to unmute, you're welcome to do that as well. But this is a great time, and you can talk about social media, websites, blogs, the strategy itself. Any questions to this point before we get to those last two pieces? All right. Looks like we've covered it so far for those of us who are on live, which is awesome. If you are listening back to this later and you have a question that comes up, write it down. Write down any questions you have. And this is the type of stuff that you bring back to the SBDC when you do your consultations with them. So I really encourage you to think it through, write it down, and don't forget about the questions that are coming up in this moment. So let's look at the last two sections of this. And I tend to love these two sections because a lot of times people don't even really know what I'm talking about, or they have not a lot of information about these. Let's look at newsletters first. So this is, email marketing, sending out, emails to your whole audience. This is what we're talking about with newsletters. What can they do for your business? Well, first of all, they can keep your audience warm. The people that you met however many years ago, it helps stay in front of them. It can give you some more predictable reach to your audience. It can also balance value with harder selling. And then lastly, it offers incredibly powerful analytics that can pretty much directly feed into your sales process. So let's look at these in more detail. I happen to love newsletters, so I'll try to keep myself calm here, but I have a lot of things I want to share with you about this. Newsletters help to keep your audience warm. A lot of times, you're meeting people all throughout your business. If you've been in business 10 years, Are you still communicating with the people who met you 10 years ago? It can be really hard to do that if all of your outreach is one-to-one. So newsletters are one of the ways that we can stay in front of the bulk of our audience all at once, somewhat predictably on a regular basis. And this is important because some of the people might have bought something from you already. For some people, it's going to take a while, or it might be a while before they think about you again for a referral or because they need to buy from you again. So how do you keep them thinking about you until they're ready to refer or buy something else from you? Well, this is where we start applying the rule of 7. And the rule of 7 is a general sales principle, and it says it takes at least 7 touches to convert a lead into a sale, to warm leads. Basically, how many times you need to get in front of somebody to build the trust, to build enough rapport with them where they feel that you have the reputation and they like your brand enough that they're ready to accept whatever call to action you've put out there. For a lot of us, it takes more than one touch, right? This rule of 7 is a general sales principle. It's saying 7 touches, but for some of you, you may have found you need more. For some of you, you may have found that if I meet somebody over here, it takes me 5 touches. If I meet them over here, it takes me 7. If I meet them over here, it takes me 20, right? We start to get to know what the quality of our conversations are in any given place where we're meeting our contacts, and how often, how many times do you need to be in front of them before they are ready to buy something from you. And so I'm going to give you an example of my own results here. And this is not to terrify you, but it's just to give you some perspective. So I have, one of the things that I do with my newsletter is, I'll put a marketing tip of the week out there on Wednesdays. I'll do a guest blog. This stuff comes out every single Wednesday, and it has for many years now. There have been a lot of times when I've had people call me up and say, oh, I've been reading your newsletter for 1 year, 2 years, and I'm ready to work with you now. Last year, I had somebody call me up who said, I think I attended a speaking engagement of yours in 2015, and I'm ready to work with you now. And I thought, 6 years, it was a record for me. Now, I'm not saying that in your business, it's going to be a 6-year timer on your best customers, but I am saying it could be more than a day. It could be more than a month. It could be, for some of us, we don't have if you have a business with a lot of urgency, like maybe you're a mechanic, maybe that's a different thing, right? People need their car fixed right away. Maybe they make a decision a little quicker. For my business, it could be years. So I want to make sure that in a couple years, you're still hearing from me and thinking about me. So I want to answer the question first of who I would work with if I needed this service. And then when they need the service, they already know who to go to. That's the right strategy for my business. For your business, it might be a different thing, but just remember, they can't buy something from you if they don't remember you. So, and they can't refer you if they don't remember you. So it's really worth staying in front of the people who have been connected to your business along the way. Newsletters let you do it all at once. Now, another thing about them is that comparatively to other online marketing options, you get pretty good open and click rates on them for the most part. When we think about industry averages for open rates for newsletters, for example, you might get like 20%, 25%. 20% is probably a safe estimate, right? Think about the kind of reach you're getting on your social media posts. Something like Facebook, you put a post out there, like 2% of your audience might see it at best, and that's the people who have followed you and liked you, right? So newsletters, if you're getting, let's say 20% already, that's a really big difference in terms of output and in terms of impact. And we can measure this. This is information that we usually get pretty clearly through different newsletter platforms. So think about what that could mean, just pound for pound, how much more power your content would have through this medium. Now, another thing to consider here is that this is a place where you can mix value-driven content and sales content, right? On social media, perhaps we want to be careful about how much we're selling to people, but to not turn them off. But in your newsletter, if you've got some piece of that content that draws them in, and then you sell something, you can do it all in one place. So this is a place where you can mix those two types of content. Now, one of my favorite things about newsletters is that you can track the performance of the content like you can with other like you can track on your website how many people visited a certain thing that you put on a certain page. You can track on social media, how many people saw this, but we're tracking it numerically with most of those other platforms. With newsletters, you do get the numeric information, the quantitative information, but you can also track the behavior of certain subscribers, right? You can, on most platforms, identify by name who is interacting with your content. You can see who specifically opened your newsletters, who clicked on your newsletter content. Different platforms, different newsletter platforms have different things that they'll show you, but pretty much all of them do those things. So imagine what that can mean in your sales process. If you knew for sure that somebody was listening to you, wouldn't you feel more confident to talk to them? What else would you say to them if you knew that they were interested in certain things? This is really valuable information, and it can feed directly into your sales process. So, you don't have to tell them, I've been looking at what you've been clicking on in my analytics, but you can use that information and the next time you're in a conversation with somebody and they seem to be really responding to this type of content from me. You can mention things in that vein of your business and say, oh, have you ever noticed this type of product? You know that they have, but now you can get a conversation going about it in a way that you are more informed going into the conversation. So this is something that I want you to think about. Now, okay, this is great. Newsletters, send them, but how do you get people on your list? How do you get more people on your list? Having a nice solid list is important for the health of your business long term. And this is where something like lead magnets comes in. A lot of times people have no idea what I'm talking about when I say lead magnets. This tends to be the one that people haven't heard of if they haven't heard of one of these things. Lead magnets, sometimes we'll call them freebies or opt-ins. They tend to be something that you give for free, but they have to give you their contact information to get it. So think about what that means. That can be, online, it can be something that you sign up for, but it's also, for example, like if you ever went to an event and they have like a little clear fishbowl on the table and they say, throw your business card in for a chance to win a trip to a winery or something like that. That's actually a lead magnet because they're giving you something or the chance to get something, but you have to enter first and you have to contact information to do it. And that ultimately they're going to do something with that contact information. They're not just going to throw all those business cards away right after. They're doing this to capture leads. So hopefully that puts a little definition around what I'm talking about with this section. So because most people have no idea what I'm talking about when I say lead magnet or freebie or opt-in, it is the puzzle piece almost everybody is missing. And this is a really powerful thing to change if this is something that you don't have on your website. So ideally on your website, you will have something that people can sign up for. Now, what can a lead magnet do for your business? First of all, it kind of links your website and your newsletter together. It gives leads a reason to opt in, so hopefully more people do it. It establishes value and builds trust in the short term that hopefully you can extend to the long term. And there's just flat out more ways to market them than the newsletter itself. So let's unpack this a little bit more. I like to think of it this way. When somebody visits your website, you have no idea that they did it. You might see that one person visited your website, but you don't know who that one person is. You don't know how to reach them again. You aren't able to predictably get back in front of them there may be a couple of social media ways to do it, but through advertising, but you don't know how to contact them again. When they sign up for something, now you do. So what's the barrier of entry? Is it they have to buy something? Are they going to do that straight away? A lot of people who aren't ready to buy something might be ready to sign up for something free. And the more of those people you can start identifying, the fewer people who are anonymous to you, the more you can remarket to those people. So we're trying to get people sort of out of the shadows and into the light so that we can reach them again and get them into our sales pipeline. So this is where I like to think of it as like lead magnets are connecting the marketing and the sales strategy. Marketing is I'm going to put this message out there for all the faceless volume of people to see. Sales is when we start getting into the one-to-one conversation where you start seeing what makes this person tick, what are their objections, what do they really need from me, how do I get this to become a sale? So somehow we have to get from faceless mass of people to one-to-one conversation, and your lead magnet is a point of connection because you have identified one of those people from that mass to now talk with one-to-one. So hopefully you're seeing that it's actually a really pivotal element if we can get this somehow on our website, right? So a goal could be, can I get more people to convert to something free so that I can stay in front of them with a newsletter or direct outreach so that they can then convert to something paid? For some businesses, they just do a model of all I want to do is if I send a message out to 1 million people, one person is going to buy the thing right away. It's the low-hanging fruit. And so I'm playing a numbers game here, which is great, but there's a lot of waste in that strategy. So you can do something like that if you can afford to do it, because you have to deal with high volumes of people to do something like that. This is the other approach. Can I get you to get something free? Then I stay in front of you, then you get something paid, then I stay in front of you, then you buy again, then you make a referral. So there's like a step-by-step approach here that we're trying to set up. Now, a lead magnet is also a reason for an introduction, right? So it's not just sign up for my newsletter. Well, what's in your newsletter? It's sign up for this very specific thing that you know you have that has value to you right now. It could be a coupon. It could be a quiz. It could be an ebook. It could be a list of tips. It could be a checklist. There's so many different things that you could use as, oh, this might be something that you sign up for. And it's gives them a tangible value straight away, right up front. So with that short-term value, you've got people on your list, and it now gives those leads a chance to discover your long-term value. I'm not just the person who sent you this cool quiz. I'm also the person who could do this stuff. This is my business can also offer you this. And hopefully they're now trusting you enough to stay with you longer so they can discover the things that you sell. And I also want to point out, just, as we sort of wrap up here, if your lead magnet is evergreen, it's also just flat out easier to stretch the marketing on it. So how many different ways can you say sign up for my newsletter? Whereas with a lead magnet, if you can get them to sign up for the lead magnet and then you say, you'll also get access to my monthly newsletter, great, you've got them in both places. But with a lead magnet, you can say, 1,000th download on my ebook. Happy anniversary, ebook. You've been out for 2 years. We just had a download from South Africa. You can say all these ways, plus talk about the content, all right? So there are a lot of different ways, angles to approach your marketing and getting excited about the milestones for a lead magnet. With newsletters, usually all we can sign up for my weekly tips or sign up for my weekly recipes or whatever. So, you really want to give people more information, and the more information you do give, the more they're likely to want to sign up. So having said all that, I do want to make sure we save enough time for any last questions. I know we've been able to cover some along the way. Start getting any questions into the chat if you do want to ask any at this point, if you're on with me live. But remember, and hopefully you're seeing this after this whole conversation today, online marketing is really a long-term strategy. If you start doing all of these elements, if you start thinking about the relationship between all of these tools and the seeds that you're planting to connect them, you're going to start finding, people may come to you and say, oh, I read that blog you wrote 3 years ago. And you don't even remember putting the content out there. And somehow through the really intricate web that you've put out there, you captured their attention and you've hooked them in until they're ready to talk with you. And it may happen years later in your business. And the longer you're out there, the more you're going to see stuff like this happening. So hopefully today gave you ideas on how to start setting that up for your business. So again, for any questions you do want to ask, here's a quick reminder of what we talked about today. We talked about course strategy, your website, blogs, social media, newsletters, and lead magnets. All of that is fair game for questions. And as you're getting questions in, a quick reminder, we do have a couple more sessions coming up. Both of them are going to be 1 hour. This was a 1.5 hour one. Those two are both 1 hour. So January 27th, we'll talk about pinpointing your brand and target market. Really good if you're trying to think about what your presence is that you want to have. If I've been saying brand and target market all this time and you're thinking, I don't even know who I'm trying to talk to, you'll want to attend that session. And then February 3rd, we'll talk about marketing your business from the driver's seat. That one is a fun one from looking at the psychology of marketing and sales. How can you take a position of power and authority in all the marketing and sales work that you do? So those are a couple that are coming up here. And I do want to leave some time for questions. I also, as a reminder, here's a link to the SBDC website in case you want to book some time with an advisor, because hopefully this just gave you some things that you can bring to them in a conversation to discuss. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Brett, and we'll see if any questions are coming in.
Thank you. If you do have questions, I'm not seeing anything pop up right now. We did cover a lot of great information again. Melissa, thank you so much for all that you bring to the table every time we get a chance to speak with you and hear you tell us and make us a little smarter about our marketing and our marketing strategies. But if you have anything that you want to say, please go ahead. Everybody is saying yes, of course. Muchas gracias. They're loving it. Thank you very much. There are a few things I want to bring up real quick. I don't know if I mentioned it, but Melissa is also the author of a free ebook as well, Small Business Marketing on a Budget. If you haven't read it, you should go to her website. I believe it's your website that you can download it, right? You may see some of the things that we talked about today implemented as well and show you a little bit about how that actually interacts and makes it a productive thing for you as well on your marketing strategies. But the information in that little ebook is amazing. I actually did that after the first time we met, and I'm very thankful I got to read it. Thank you for that information. Thank you for the ebook. So, oh, look at that. You put it in, it's in the web chat right now.
Put it right into the chat. For those who are on live, that'll be handy. For those who aren't, find me. melissa@events.com. Thanks for mentioning that, Brett.
No, you bet. Well, if anybody doesn't have any questions, do you have anything that you'd also like to wrap this up with in final words?
Just thank you all for being here. And I think if you're here live, great. And if you're watching this back later, that's equally great. I think I said it up front, but generating more revenue, having success in your business, it doesn't happen by accident. We really do need to plan for it. And the fact that you have carved out time to think about this stuff, to think about your marketing, and to think about how you can set yourself up for success means a lot. And thank you for carving that time out. And I really believe that when you dedicate some time to working on your business in this way, you get something back from it. So thank you for being here for this. And, I hope it gave you some new ideas.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And just to remind everybody, right after this, you're going to be receiving a survey shortly. Just a quick 2 minutes to help us continue to bring you great quality content like this today with Melissa. And we also have some things I'd like to share with everybody. Melissa was telling you some opportunities that are coming up. I'm going to give you a bigger list even. And here it is. That is not it. Yes, it is. This is a list of upcoming webinars. If you look up the QR code in the top right-hand corner, it'll take you straight there so you can register. But on the 20th, we have Motivated Team, What's the Secret with Lorna Kibbe. That's actually this afternoon at 2 p.m. If you can make it, that'd be great. And we have on the 24th, Preparing for Success, Updating Financial Goals for 2022 with Rebecca Schultz. And if you're into numbers, or if you've ever attended anything about some of the webinars that Rebecca Schultz has given, you'll understand really quickly what level of thinking goes into preparing your business for success when it comes to the numbers part of that. Rebecca's amazing, and she's a great presenter. January 25th, Intro to QuickBooks. This is part one of a series that we're just starting out this year. to help everybody get their numbers in order and help you to be better business owners when it comes to managing your own finances. And of course, Melissa's coming back. We're looking forward to that. Pinpointing your target market and team conflict, how to make it productive with Lorna Kibbe as well. So that's some of the upcoming things this month. There's plenty more. Check out the QR code, go there. And if by chance you want to reach out to an SBDC advisor and make an appointment for your business just to talk about some things that you might have as needs right now to help better your business, please do so. You can reach us on our website, for the SBDC website, where you can register for these webinars as well. So schedule an appointment with us whenever you want. Resources for small business owners are also available on that. Please feel free to see some of the things that we have to offer. And where would we be without some of the funding that brings all this to you? So we want to thank the Small Business Administration, the state of Texas, North Texas Small Business Development Regional Office, as well as North Central Texas College. All of them go together to make this available to you, and we really much appreciate everybody attending today, and we look forward to seeing you soon. This will conclude our webinar for today. You have a great week, what's left of it.